My God, I hate trucks.
So, good morning, everyone. Today we'll give you a short presentation and explanation on train and its impact to inflation. So, I'll try to do it in English and Filipino para it's easier for everyone to understand and para it's easier to digest. So, initially, as a recap, please. Okay. As a recap, so what did we do in tax reform? So the package one, so ngayon, ang naririnig po natin karaniwan, yung mga excise taxes. Pero, ang hindi natin nababanggit is what did we do to also contribute funds to the general public? So first, we simplified and we lowered the personal income tax. So we also restructured the tax for self-employed professionals at a flat tax of 8%. So we also reduced and restructured the donors tax to a single tax rate of 6% and ex-state tax also for those exceeding standard deduction of 5 million, we also increased it to 10 million. So what else did we do? We broadened the VAT system by removing reducing the number of exemptions. We staggered the increase of excise taxes on petroleum products. We simplified the excise tax on automobiles, introduced a sugar-sweetened beverage tax, and introduced other taxes as well. So, second slide. So what has the government been doing? So first, we as you can see the year on year, so yung quarter 1 of 2017 and quarter 1 of 2018, if you compare them, the tax collection of both BIR, BOC, and the other offices actually increased, and our non-tax revenues as well also increased. On our expenditure effort, it means that we have been investing more on infrastructure, and we have been adding more to our economic growth. So even our expenditure effort is also growing. So next slide. So what has been the initial effect of this tax reform effort? So according to S&P credit ratings, we were increased from stable to BBB+. So this is positive for our economy because it signals abroad and the international market that we are a very investable country. So next. Okay, so historically, okay, so a lot of people have been talking about inflation. So if you would look at it historically, inflation is very moderate. It's normal for inflation to be increasing year on year because every year historically it really increased. But what we want to look at is if it is increasing on a moderate pace or if it's spiking up very, very quickly. If you would look at the graph, as of the moment, our inflation rate are increasing moderately, and this is normal for a growing economy. But if you look at the month-to-month progression of the impact of trade on inflation, it is actually decreasing. So it means that the effect of the trade on inflation is actually softening. So next slide. Okay, so what are the 10 drivers of inflation? So, okay, so in a commodity group, we chose the top 10 of the most commodities that are contributing to inflation. And these are fish, these are those that we are flashing on the screen. Now, what does this mean? How do we relate this to what's actually happening? So, what we are trying to say is that when you look at inflation, it's not all about train. So what we have is that train only gave an impact of 0.4 percentage points to the overall inflation rate. And it is not only train that is contributing to inflation because number one, we have to consider global prices of oil. Okay, so although it is increasing, we have heard from the OPEC countries and Russia that they are in talks of increasing oil production. So we are looking forward to the effects that this will give to our supply of oil. Number two, what we also have to consider is the decreasing value of peso. So, okay, so with the decreasing peso, it's not entirely bad. Number one, it's decreasing because interest rates in the United States are increasing. So it's normal that people would pull out their money and bring it to the United States. Number two, we have been contributing to giving more money in people's pockets. So how do we explain this? For example, when we lowered the personal income tax, we actually gave money to the people for them to spend. when we gave unconditional cash transfers, we also increased the spending power of the people, as well as when now we are going to give free education, that will also contribute to inflation. Because once you give more money in the market, right now, people, instead of saving, they actually spend. And you can see this because the amount of income of Jollibee, of McDonald's, actually increased. So you would see that people are actually spending, and this is also contributing to inflation. So, next slide, please. Okay, so for oil excise, as you can see, although the gas and diesel prices actually increased, only the top percent, or the one highlighted in pink, is because of train. All the other factors, or the bigger factors beneath, that is actually because of international prices. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so when we calculated for the impact of train to inflation, what we did was to have a standard of 50 to 60 pesos US, 50 to 60 US dollars per barrel. But as you can see, the Dubai crude oil actually increased in a fast pace. So it wasn't accounted for, but now we actually inserted buffer provisions in the train law, wherein once the average oil international price reaches around 80 US dollars, then we can actually suspend the implementation of the next tranche of increase in the excise prices of oil in the succeeding years. Okay, so this also, as we were mentioning earlier, because of the devaluation of the peso, which is also because of larger imports of capital equipment, of heavy machinery, because right now we're doing build, build, build also, so a lot of manufacturers and businesses, they're importing capital goods. So because they are importing, the demand for dollar actually increases. That's why the peso is also going down. But this is not entirely bad, because if you look at it on the other side, the remittances of OFWs actually are increasing because of the higher exchange rate of the dollar. So the ones entering the market, the money flowing inside the country is actually also increasing. So next slide, please. So this also contributes to the rapid increase in retail of gas prices. But as we earlier mentioned, we are looking forward to the discussions of the OPEC countries and Russia in increasing output of oil. Next slide, please. Okay. So another concern is that inflation is now one of the top concerns of Filipinos. Although this is true, it is not only now that we are concerned about inflation. If you will look at it historically, even in 2010, ever since, inflation, regardless of whether it's going up or if it's going down, has always been on the top 3 concerns of every Filipino. So next. So what we want to show is that while inflation is moderately increasing, the SWS survey on self-rated poverty and hunger actually decreased. So it means that people feel that they have more money. So it actually, our national, yung hunger, how people see themselves, if they are poor or not, it actually decreased. So this is actually good, because although a lot of people are saying that the poverty rate would be increasing because of inflation, it's actually not true, because self-rated poverty, the people itself, they themselves already rate themselves as it's actually decreasing. So what else do we have to consider? So another thing that we have to consider is that aside from the implementation of the train, we also have new laws. For example, yung ating tarification bill, which is already in the process of in the legislative mill. Once this is passed, we assume that we think that it will lower the impact of inflation, because it will increase rice importation in the Philippines, and it will only be subject to tariffs. Number 2, we think that the passage of the national ID system will help us efficiently administer the unconditional cash transfers, because it would be easier now to determine which of the people are the beneficiaries, because one of the problems in implementing the conditional and unconditional cash transfers is that not all Filipinos have proper identification. So syempre, lalong-lalo na po yung nasa rural areas, like na nasa probinsya, hindi naman po lahat sila may ID. And it's very hard to determine sino ba talaga yung dapat covered ng conditional and unconditional cash transfer. So ngayon na we already have yung national ID, mas madali pong maibigay yung transfer sa mga tamang tao. So that's our presentation, and if you have any questions or clarifications, we can answer you.
MPC questions? Rose Novenario?